Hey guys, it's Brian. We're back in the garage with Frostbite JL, and today we got a new rear bumper. Let's go check it out. Alright guys, so we went ahead and got the Motobilt rear bumper. This is going to be their crusher bumper with the light cutouts, and it also has the spare tire cutout for it as well. So they do sell this without the spare tire cutout, and they do sell it with just the slats instead of the light cutouts. I do want to run chase lights, put some amber lights in there eventually. I'm still looking to see which ones I like, but I'll put those in. And another good thing, they did just go ahead and make adapters for your backup sensors here. So they went ahead and put holes in here, and then you can bolt your backup sensors into these holes. So these are pretty cool. That's something new that they put on there. So we'll be able to retain those factory backup sensors. We're going to have room for up to a 40-inch tire with this, and this is going to be 3/16 steel, and this is going to be heavy duty. It's got 3/4 inch D-ring mounts, which are nice. And then it also has a little cutout for the factory trailer hitch. So we can retain all our OEM stuff as well. So for this one, they do say to go ahead and test fit it before you prep it for paint. That way if you have a problem with it, you can go ahead and return it, that kind of thing. We shouldn't have any issues, but I am going to pull off this old bumper and test fit it, see how it looks, and then we'll get it painted. Let's go over what we're going to paint it with. Alright guys, so this is some of the stuff we're going to need to go ahead and apply the Steelit properly. If you guys haven't ever heard of Steelit, it is a pretty nice rattle can solution for powder coating. They call it powder coating in a can. It does give you a nice hard texture. It's also weldable, and it also has stainless steel flakes in it as well. So this stuff's pretty nice. It is kind of expensive. It's about $20–25 a can, but it is great stuff. And the good thing about this over powder coat is I can go back and touch it up with just a can. But it does require some special prep. So what you do need to do is you do need to rough it up with a 36 grit paper. I am going to go, or get it sandblasted. I am going to go ahead and probably use my flapper wheel on my grinder, and then I'll use this for in the tight spots. I also got some Scotch-Brite to kind of get in like the D-ring holes and whatnot, kind of clean that up. Then you also want some alcohol. You want to go ahead and do that whole thing with alcohol, let it dry, and then you're ready to go with these. And they do want some thick coats on this. And they do also say to wear a proper respirator. So you do want to go ahead and get you one of these. This stuff is pretty bad for you if you inhale it. So you do want to have that. And then a pair of safety glasses. I got this little handle here. Should make spraying it easier. We are going to do 2 really heavy coats. And they say you don't need primer or anything for this. So that'll be pretty cool. I also want to go over the license plate. We are going to relocate it to the JK position. And this is going to be at the Evo manufacturing bracket. This thing's kind of cool. It just kind of goes up underneath the body pinch seam, bolts in there, and then you can put your plate right here, and it's going to go in that driver's side corner, kind of where the JK ones used to be. So this is kind of a universal part. It's pretty cheap. It's about 50 bucks. All right, and then I went ahead and picked up an Artec Industries light solution here for you. This is going to have little bolts that have LED lights in them, and it comes with all the connectors and the cabling and everything you need for that. So we're going to go ahead and light up our plate with these guys. So it should be a pretty nice solution. We'll just plug it into the factory setup and the wiring harness that we're going to use for the backup sensors as well. So this is all the stuff you're going to need if you want to go ahead and do the Steelit and do it properly. So we're going to go ahead and test fit that bumper. We'll get the old one off. We'll show you guys what that looks like, and then I'm going to get it prepped for paint. All right, here we go, guys. All right, guys, so as far as removing the OEM bumper, I did do a video already on the install of this new factory OEM Rubicon bumper. So it's going to be just the same as that, just in reverse. I do show you how to take the old plastic one off if you do have that one as well. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this off, and then we're going to test fit that new one. We'll show you guys that, and we'll see what it looks like unpainted. All right, so let's get at it. Alright guys, one thing to note about this factory OEM steel bumper that you can get on some of the Rubicons or purchase afterwards is they do bend quite a bit, and that's one of the reasons why we're getting rid of it. This one did take a little bit of a hit on this corner, but it moved about 3 or 4 inches up into my tub here and actually cracked some of the silver paint. So I'm going to have to go back in and touch that up. It wasn't too bad thankfully, but it was a very light hit. So that's one of the reasons why we're going with the Motobilt one. I've seen that one stuck up on rocks with the corner of the Jeep up in the air, and it hasn't bent at all, didn't hit the tub. So it's going to be a great addition. one of the reasons why I want to get this swapped out before the Rubicon trip. And another thing to note is this little support bracket kind of out here on the plastic wings. Sometimes this will bend up into the body and it'll mess up your pinch seam underneath. I haven't seen mine yet. I'm going to take this off and we'll see if I do have any damage or not that we need to clean up. Alright guys. Alright guys, we got that old bumper off there. That's what it looks like underneath there. It's pretty dirty, we'll get it cleaned up. We do have to go ahead and pull off the tow hook here, the recovery hook, and then we're gonna have to pull off these bolts on each side. The new bumper does mount there. So I wanna go ahead and show you guys what I was talking about with that bracket bending up in there. So like I said, I took a very light hit and it did damage the tub right here. And then it also bent up into the bottom here of the pinch seam. So what we are going to do, we'll get some touch-up paint for that and we'll get it cleaned up. Won't be too big of a deal. That new bumper kind of comes around the corner here a little bit, so it should hide some of that. So let's go ahead and we'll get that new bumper on. Alright, and one more thing to note on these guys, these are 21mm, so it's going to be 2 here, 2 underneath here, and then 2 on the opposite side. And then we'll have a little plate that we put in, and we do a couple here that comes with Motobilt's plate. So let me show you what that looks like. So on this side we don't have the nuts in here, so what we're going to do is put Motobilt's plate in here and then their hardware up through here. So we'll remove these ones on the sides on each side and then we can go ahead and throw the bumper on. Alright guys, I wanted to show you how the Evo bracket works real quick. So there is a little hole already here in the pinch seam. It does have this little tab that goes up through a little hole in the back here, a little square cut out. So what you'll do is you push that up through that little square there and then go ahead and bring it around front, line it up just like that with that little hole there. You'll put your hardware in there and then the plate's going to go right here. So it's going to kind of sit right here where the factory JK one was. It's going to be more up like this, right in this area. And then we have the wiring harness is right behind here. So we'll just wire up those little Artec bolt lights that we got right up underneath here. And we'll have a new location for our license plate. I wanted to do this instead of putting it up on the tire. I think it looks a little cleaner. And then I'm not too worried about hitting it on the trail. I never hit it on my JKs. So this is a pretty cool addition for 50 bucks. Let's go ahead and throw that bumper on, see how it fits. Alright guys, so now that we got the bumper tested on there, we looked it over real good. It looks great. I've only got a couple bolts in there now, but it looks like everything lines up. All the welds are nice and it fits the Jeep well. So we did get a good bumper, no need to return it. So we can go ahead and pull it off, get it prepped. I want to go ahead and show you guys how to prep and then paint it with the Steelit, and then we'll go ahead and do our final assembly, and then I'll show you how to install this properly. And then we'll take a look at the final result. This does look great on here so far. I'm pretty excited. So let's go ahead and get it painted. Alright guys, that's what it's going to look like with the plate installed. Puts it right in that old JK position. And then they are slotted so you can adjust it a little bit, but mine just clears with it all the way over to the passenger side, which is good because we don't want it sticking out too far on this side. You do just bolt up the hardware in the back there. You got that other bolt nut there. You could throw a washer on that if you really wanted to get a little more clamping force. But that's what she's going to look like. This is a pretty new product. I haven't seen it before. I'm glad I picked it up though. We're going to go ahead and put the license plate bolt lights in each corner and wire those down to our harness so we keep it legal. But we'll go ahead and get that bumper prepped and painted here, and we'll show you what it looks like all together. Alright guys, this is how the first layer of Steelit turned out. I think it looks really nice. Really like this color, and the texture is pretty nice too. So we're going to go ahead and do our second and final coat on the outside. We'll let that dry all the way and then we'll flip it over and do the inside. All right, here we go. All right, guys, you also don't want to forget to go ahead and spray paint your brackets. This is going to slide into the frame rails on that passenger side, and then we'll have some bolts that go up and retain the bumper. We do have welded in bolts on the driver's side. This just retains the bolts on the passenger side. This does come raw, so you do want to paint it. Also, I have these little forks that Motobilt includes. These retain your sensors. These come raw as well, so you want to go ahead and paint these. Alright guys, so it's been a couple weeks. We went ahead and finished up coating our Motobilt crusher bumper with some Steelit. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. I think it turned out pretty good. Like I said, we did use Steelit. We used the black stuff. It did end up taking about 4 cans. I did have to go back and wet sand some spots that I kind of messed up and then paint over it again. So ended up using about 4 cans. So if you guys are going to do this same bumper, I'd budget about 4 cans for this so you get a nice even coat. And then another thing, I do suggest you paint the inside first. That way when you flip it over, it doesn't matter if you scratch it or kind of mess up the coating. That way your outside turns out nice. I did it reversed and I ended up scuffing up the front, and that's part of the reason why we had to wet sand it. So it turned out great. They do say to wait about 5 to 10 days for this to fully cure, and I suggest doing that. It can rub off and mess up your coating if you don't wait. So it looks good. We're going to go ahead and put the wiring harness for the backup sensors and install those sensors, and then we should be ready to put it on the Jeep. Alright guys, so now we're ready to go ahead and install those sensors. You do want to go ahead and lay them out in the order you took them off. You do want to put them back in the same locations on the new bumper. That way we don't have any issues with the sensors. So I've got my wiring harness laid out here. This is the factory harness. Make sure you got your driver's side over on that end with the plug that plugs up underneath the tub here. And then we are going to use these little forks that Motobilt included. You're just going to use an 1/8 inch Allen, tighten these guys up, and these are going to retain your backup sensors in the new bumper. They do also offer a plug. You'll need to paint these as well if you do want to use these. These will plug it up flush on the front, just in case you don't have those backup sensor option. So let's go ahead, we're going to install all these. We're going to wire this up. And then I did get some zip tie anchors. We're going to anchor the wiring up out of the way so you don't see it through the slots. So let's go ahead and throw that together real quick. Alright guys, so we got the first one in. You can kind of see how it's orientated, where you got the plug here at the opening of the fork. And then the rest of this kind of holds down the collar on the sensor and tightens it up. So we just go ahead and get this guy snug. We're going to do the other 3 and then I'll show you what it looks like. Alright guys, so I went ahead and cleaned up the factory wiring harness. I did go ahead and clip off all the little zip tied push pins. These little guys that are on there, that way they're not clinking around. If you come take a look, what I ended up picking up was some of these 3M backed zip tie anchors. They're pretty cool. So what you do is you peel them off, you stick them in there, and then you run a zip tie through here to hold on your wiring harness. So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to mock up the wiring harness. We're going to figure out where we can put the wires where they don't show through the little slots in the bumper, and then we'll show you guys what that looks like. Alright, here we go. Alright guys, so I went ahead and got the wiring how I want it. If you come in and take a look, it is pretty clean. We did use those wire anchors. We were able to tuck the factory wire all the way up in there. That way it's not hanging down so we can see it. And then I did end up just hardwiring into that license plate light. Then we've got our wire here. We're going to run that up to I ended up doing a different plug. This is going to be for the backup sensors. And I ended up doing one of these waterproof, dustproof plugs here for you. If you come take a look on the license plate light, I went ahead and wired this up into these 2 plate lights. So if you come take a look in the back, I added some wire loom around it. And then now when we throw the bumper up there, I'll cut it to length and then we're able to plug this in and we'll have our lights. So let's go ahead and get the bumper on. Alright guys, now that we got the bumper thrown up on there, it looks great. We're going to go ahead and throw a few bolts in there loosely so we can kind of get the fitment how we want it, and then we'll tighten it down. I also need to rewire the other part of that harness for the license plate light. So these are going to be new bolts that they give you. It's going to be 8 new bolts for the Motobilt bumper. These are going to be 22 millimeters. So let's go ahead and get a few tightened in there and then we'll see how it looks. Alright guys, and then you want to go ahead and remember to throw in your new plate with the welded nuts for this side. It's going to be for the passenger side. On the driver's side, we already have them in the frame from the tow hook. We removed that for the bolts, and now we're going to throw this guy in. It just notches in the frame, and then we can put our new bolts up into there. Alright guys, so a little trick for getting that first bolt started in that plate. That plate is just kind of floating around in there. So I did grab one of our longer factory bolts that came off the recovery hook. These ones are quite a bit longer, so I was able to get it up in there, get it started, and then you can hold pressure down while you start the new bolt in the back. Definitely helps. You definitely want to try something like that. That way that plate's not lifting up inside the frame. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten up the rest of these bolts. Just get them nice and snug. We'll see how it's fitting and then adjust it if we need to. All right, let's do that. All right guys, so now that we have the bumper on and tightened up, what we're going to do is go ahead and plug in our factory harness. So this is going to be for the backup sensors. And then this is going to be our new harness for the lights. And then this is the new cord coming from the lights. So what we're going to do is go ahead and splice this guy in real quick. Then we can plug it into this. And we'll go ahead and plug this guy up in here and tuck it back in the factory location. I'll show you what that looks like when we're all done. All right guys, so we went ahead and wrapped up all the wiring. Got the backup sensors back in the factory spot there. And then we've got our new plug there for the license plate light. Turned out pretty clean. We just tuck it right up in there, and then if we ever need to go ahead and remove the bumper, we just unplug it. Then here's the license plate lights. They do work. They light it up pretty good, especially at night, so we're definitely legal now. I think it all turned out pretty good. We've got those spots where we can add pod lights later if we need to, and then our backup sensors are retained. Alright guys, let's go ahead and finish this up. Alright guys, that's going to do it for the install of my Motobilt crusher rear bumper. This one does have the tire cutout, and it's also got the light cutouts so we can add pod lights later. I think I might go with some Bajas and a work scene kind of amber color. I think that'll be cool for camping and in the dust as chase lights. So everything works great. We did get our plate lights working. They work great. The wiring harness was pretty easy. I like that RTEC kit. And then we have all our backup sensors in there. We retained all those and they work great. So I think this was a great install. I really like using that Steelit as well. It turned out great. Guys, go ahead and like and subscribe and stay tuned. We got a Rubicon trip coming up. All right, we'll see you guys.